So today I went to church to confess one of my most recent sins to the priest. So I sat in the confession booth. I told the priest, I said, "Father, I have sinned," and the priest wanted to hear all about it. So I said to him, I said, "Father, last night I almost cheated on my wife." And the priest goes, "What do you mean you almost cheated on your wife?" So I told him, I said, "Father, I was in a room with another girl. We got naked and all we did was rub each other. We didn't actually do anything." My priest turns to me and goes, "Rubbing together is the same thing as putting it in. Now for your sins, you must never see that woman again. You must say 5 Hail Marys and put $50 into the donation box." So anyway, I tell the priest I'm not going to see the girl again. I say my 5 Hail Marys and I walk out the door. So all of a sudden, my priest comes running after me saying, "Hey, I saw you. You didn't put $50 into the donation box." I looked at him and said, "Yeah, I did. I took the money and rubbed it against the box because it's the same thing as putting it in." Today at work, I was trying to call my wife, but for some reason, my phone calls weren't getting through to her. So I used one of my coworkers' phones to dial my house number and call home. So I call home, and a sweet voice answers the phone. It's my daughter. I go, "Hey, cutie, how you doing?" She goes, "Hey, daddy, what's up?" And I go, "I'm just at work. What are you and mommy doing?" She says, "Well, I just finished lunch, and mommy's upstairs." I go, "Cutie, what's mommy doing upstairs?" She goes, "She's with Uncle Paul." And I go, "Uncle Paul? We don't have an Uncle Paul. What do you mean?" She's like, "Yeah, she's with Uncle Paul. They're upstairs in their room." So I'm like, "Cutie, that doesn't sound right. So what I want you to do is I want you to leave the phone on the kitchen table, go upstairs to your mommy's room and say, 'Hey, daddy just pulled in the driveway,' and tell me what happens, all right?" She did it, and like a minute later, she comes back and picks up the phone and goes, "Okay, daddy, I did it." And I go, "Okay, what happened?" She goes, "Well, mommy came running out of her room naked, and she tripped down the stairs and bumped her head, and now she can't get up." So I was like, "What about the other guy?" And she goes, "Well, Uncle Paul tried to jump out of the window into the pool, but he missed and hit the floor. Now he won't wake up." So I was like, "We don't have a pool." Then I look at the phone number and I was like, "Oh, sorry, wrong number."
Storytime of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Yes, biological brother, same mom, same dad. So a little background information, my mom passed away when I was 2, my dad is currently in jail, and I live with my grandma. So at the time, I was 14, about to be 15, he was 17, about to be 18. So how this all started is one day I was at the baseball game with my friends and he happened to be there. I was fangirling over this boy. Like, I saw him and I was like, I'm going to marry him one day. I was feeling a little bold, so I went over and got his snap. And then I figured out that he had the same last name as me and I was like, dude, that is dope. My exact words were, "Now I don't have to change my last name when we get married." So we hung out the rest of the baseball game and I was starting to fall in love with this kid. Like his smile, his laugh, I talked about him to my friends the rest of the night. And me and him started snapping for a while. So we started to hang out a lot. We may have hooked up a couple times. But I had to keep this all secret from my grandma because she forbid I dated somebody. So fast forward a couple weeks, we start dating. Months and months and months go by. Our 9 months come and I finally tell my grandma. And this is where it gets bad. I'm running out of time, like for part 2.
This boy lied about his age just to date me. Story time. So I ran into his cousin who just so happened to go to the same school as me. What a small world. Anyways, we start having a conversation and she asked me, "Oh my God, are you dating Binky?" And I was like, "Oh, how do you know that?" Because at the time, I didn't know that she was his cousin. And he didn't go to the same school as me. So I didn't know how she would have known that. And then she tells me, "Oh, that's my cousin." As we're talking, she says, "Oh, are you going to go to his birthday party?" And I'm like, no, he actually didn't tell me he was having a birthday party. Weird. And she's like, "Yeah, that's really weird because it's like coming up next week." And I'm just sitting here like, well, maybe he'll tell me. He probably just had a lot on his mind. And then she says, "I can't believe he's going to be 16 already. Time flies. We're going to throw him a sweet 16 party." After she says that, I just look at her like, you mean 18, right? Like, you said 16. I think you meant 18. Sorry, there has to be a part 3.
My best friend's boyfriend starts DMing me on Instagram. He confesses that he had a crush on me when we were in college together, and I told him that I did too. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. From that day on, he would DM me every single day and we would just flirt back and forth. I started feeling really guilty and I told him one day I can't do this anymore. That's when he told me he also felt guilty and that the best thing was for us to stop talking, so we did. I was so sad. A few weeks passed by and my best friend asked me if she could have the apartment all to herself because she's planning a romantic dinner for him. I said yes, but I felt so jealous. I left the apartment because I realized that I was so in love with him. I went to the supermarket and ate a whole pack of Oreo cookies and went to the movies. I got a text message from my best friend asking me to come home immediately. My stomach sank and I thought she had found out. When I get there, she's crying and she says that he broke up with her. I asked if he said why and she said because he was in love with another woman. My stomach sank again. I was there with her the entire night while she cried knowing her boyfriend left her because of me. Part 3 is up.
This boy lied about his age just to date me. Story time. So back when my cute self was a senior in high school, there was this new girl that came to our school. Long story short, me and her ended up becoming super close. I went to her house, spent the night. Her family loved me. I mean, why wouldn't they? Anyways, she had a brother. We're gonna call him Binky. Me and Binky got pretty close. Now I want you guys to keep in mind, Binky didn't go to my school because their parents were divorced. So the sister who I was friends with lived with her mom, and Binky lived with his dad who lived in another city. But sometimes Binky would go to his mom's house, which is how I met him. Now that we got that out of the way, as me and Binky were getting closer, one day he asked me, "Hey, how old are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I just turned 17. How about you?" He told me, "Oh, I'm 17 too, but my 18th birthday is coming up." After a while, me and him eventually started dating. Then one day, I ran into his cousin who happened to go to my school. The rest of this story is crazy.
One day in elementary school, it was lunchtime. A bitch had to go potty. It was poo-poo time. So I remember I went to the restroom and I was exploding or whatever. And these girls walked in. We're gonna call them the Chipettes, okay? This is the best part. So the Chipettes start yelling in the bathroom. "Is someone here? Can someone hear me?" Like, I didn't say anything. I was literally taking a shit. Like, what? These girls, deadass, start laughing. They turn off the lights in the bathroom. They turn on all the sinks, whatever. And they start saying like Bloody Mary or some shit. And then the Chipettes run out of the bathroom and shut the door. So here I am getting casted on. I remember seeing a shadow. I fell on my ass. And I start screaming and crying. It wasn't good. So someone called the janitor. Janitor walks in to check up on me. It's a guy.
Am I the asshole for having my wedding ceremony in sign language? I'm 24 female, deaf, and growing up, my parents got me bilateral cochlear implants and forced me into mainstream school. Never taught me sign language and never immersed me into my culture as a deaf person. They were actually pretty against me using ASL at all. Well, I took ASL in high school against my parents' wishes and then got into a deaf university. Although I couldn't sign fluently when I started, I finally felt accepted and understood. The deaf community was nothing but welcoming. I became fluent in ASL, and after a few months, I stopped wearing my processors completely as there was no need for them anymore. I honestly didn't realize how alone I had felt until I didn't feel that way anymore. I met my fiance at college. He is from a very large family of deaf people, and everyone is fluent in sign. We've been together 4 years now. He proposed last May. We've been planning the wedding and have decided to have it fully.
Put a finger down if from as soon as you were born, your parents would force you to watch porn, specifically a man and a woman. That way, as you grew up, you would think that relationships were supposed to be between men and women. And so every time you saw a couple of the same gender, you would automatically assume that they weren't normal and had some type of mental illness. And so when you grew up and sooner or later made a friend who you got really close with and eventually became best friends with, and she came out to you and told you she was gay, you ended up dropping her. And not only that, but made a fake page and outed her, so then the whole school knew, but she still doesn't know that it was you. And so one day when your parents who gave you that mindset died in a car crash, that friend you outed and completely violated offered to let you stay with them, and her parents would take custody of you even though you weren't as close as you used to be, and you took up on that offer and started living with her, but she still doesn't know that it was you who outed her until one day you felt too bad, so you decided to tell her. I'm running out of time, so like for part 2.
My girlfriend is so embarrassing, it's not even funny. So last week we were grocery shopping, and my girlfriend got caught stealing a can of plum tomatoes. Plum fucking tomatoes. So anyway, she got caught, and now she had to go to court today, so I came with her. On the way to court, she's crying at me, this and that, and I feel for her, but she's really scared. So in the courtroom, the judge asked my girlfriend, he goes, "Excuse me, ma'am, I understand that you stole a can of plum tomatoes. Now, how many plum tomatoes were in that can?" So my girlfriend answered the judge, she says, 6, Your Honor. So the judge looks at her and goes, "I'm going to sentence you to 1 night in jail for every plum tomato that you stole." My girlfriend turns to me and starts bawling her eyes out. She's like, do something, please help me. So I look at the judge and say, "Your Honor, she also stole a can of peas last week too."
I will never, and I mean never, forget the time that we had a male sub in high school and a girl asked to go to the restroom and he said sure. So she grabbed something and he heard her wrapper and he was like, "Oh, if you're gonna eat candy, you can do it in here, but you have to share with everyone in the class." And she was like, "What?" And he was like, "Well, I heard the wrapper." And she whips out a tampon, shoves it in his face, and she goes, "You want to share?" "Oh, Girl, savage.
So I started stealing my mom's underwear to sell them online. So basically I started keeping track of every single time my mom went to shower. After she was done showering, I would make sure to go and steal her underwear, her dirty underwear. Then I would take a peek into her laundry basket and grab whatever was there too. In just the first month of selling my mom's underwear, I had made $500. So I started selling even more underwear. And I started selling them for $75 a pop. And this is gross, but some guys wanted my mom's underwear after she went to the gym. Totally disgusting, but those are the ones that I could really sell for more money. One day my mom started getting really suspicious, asking me where I got the money to buy all the stuff that I was getting. And of course she started freaking out because she noticed a lot of her underwear started going missing. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent to me on Instagram. Well, I didn't know this, but my mom had installed cameras because she was getting really nervous that she had a stalker. So I would go on about my day stealing my mom's underwear. Little did I know I was being filmed every second of the day. There's a knock on the door one day and it's the police. Part 3 is
Story time of how my boyfriend ended up being my stepdad. So I was dating this kid, and me and this kid had like the best relationship. He was 19 and I was 17. And I mean, we were literally always together. And my mom would always call him hot and stuff like that, but you know, I thought that's just what moms do. And I didn't think of it in that type of way. So one day my boyfriend got mad at me. And he was like, I'm gonna F your mom, become your stepdad, and boss you around if you keep up that attitude. And I mean, who would think that he's gonna actually try to do that? And I said, I would like to see you try. But again, we were just in a little argument, so about a month or two goes on, and I find messages from my boyfriend to my mom and vice versa. They were like sexting, and I saw things I did not want to see from my mother. So I went to go confront both of them, and I confronted my mom first. And like, she wouldn't tell me nothing, she just told me to get out of her face. Oh, but my boyfriend told me they had been hooking up. But he told me I was overreacting because it's just my mom. Oh, just wait till you find out what happens next. I'm running out of time, for part 2.
To anyone who gets a period, this video is for us. When I was in middle school, I really appreciated this teacher who would let the girls go to the bathroom whenever we wanted. And the guys would complain that they had to wait 20 minutes at least after lunch so that they could use the restroom. And the teacher would always remind them, you guys are boys and these are young ladies and they don't always have to just relieve themselves in the restroom. And I didn't even realize that was just basic human decency for people who have periods until I got to high school. When I was a junior in high school, I was sitting in class and I felt like I was bleeding. And so I told my teacher that I had to use the restroom. And he told me I couldn't go because it was the first 15 minutes of class. And I told him, it's an emergency, I really have to use the restroom. And he said, you should have thought about that at lunch. And because I'm not gonna sit here and bleed through my pants, I was like, I'm menstruating really loud in front of the whole class. And he was shocked and so uncomfortable. He started doing that thing where he tries to laugh like, in all my 20 years of teaching, no one has ever told me that. And I just sat there and wondered how many girls before me had to sit in their own blood.
I literally want to cry. So if you didn't know, I have a sister and her name's Ashley. And we both have boyfriends. And every night we both fall asleep on the phone with our boyfriends. So one day we're all hanging out and we're like just talking. And my sister's boyfriend looks at me and he's like, you need to stop going into your sister's room in the middle of the night. And I look at him and I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have a reason to go into her room. Like, I don't go into her room, especially in the middle of the night. Then my boyfriend hops in the conversation and he's like, no. He's like, no, I hear Ashley go into Kayla's room every night and stare at her. So me and my sister both look at each other and we're like, we don't go into each other's rooms, do we? And we agreed that we do not. And they said this has been going on for months. So for months, somebody or something has been going into me and my sister's room for about 15 minutes every night and watching us sleep. But it only gets worse.
Something fun. When you're in a long-term relationship, you'll often find yourself doing this thing with your partner where you'll say, when we have kids, I hope they have this trait of yours. And today my husband was like, I hope our kids will be as resilient and determined as you. When I was 11 years old, I got in a fight with my mum when she was picking me up from school, and I was being so rude that she wanted to teach me a lesson and scare me a little bit. So she said, you can find your own way home. Left me outside of my classroom, got in her car and drove off. Now realistically, she was just doing the block and was going to come back and pick me up, hoping that I would be apologetic. But I wasn't. I was very stubborn and was like, I can find my own way home. And I decided to run home. I in fact sprinted from the school grounds and ran into a close family friend who offered to give me a lift, which I accepted, and I got home by my own means. Now my mum did do the block and not only came back to me not being where she left me, but to one of my friends saying, yeah, I saw her get in the car with some weird guy. Imagining my mum's soul leaving her body that day is enough for me to not ever want kids, let alone kids like me.
This is why you should never leave the table when you're on a blind date. One of my best friends and I worked at the same restaurant. When I came in later that day for my shift, she told me a crazy story. She said that her first table were this guy and this girl, and she could tell they were on a first date. The girl was nervous, so she ordered a glass of wine. As far as she knew, the date seemed to be going well, and the girl got up to go to the bathroom. Right when my friend was about to come over and bring the silverware, she saw him put something in her wine. My friend, obviously terrified and freaking out, let our manager know, who then let the police know, and ran into the bathroom to tell her what was going on. The girl ended up staying in the bathroom until the police came, arrested him, and escorted him out of the building. It was noon on a Tuesday. You don't think you're going to be drugged at noon on a Tuesday.
Usually when my clients arrive for their appointment, they're not wearing any makeup. But this girl wore makeup to the appointment just to have me take it off and then do her makeup again. I thought that was a little strange, but after I removed her makeup, I saw her nose. The tip of her nose was bright red and even a little bit deformed. It looked like a really, really bad sunburn. I tried to avoid the area when I started doing her makeup, but eventually I had to put makeup on her nose. And when I did, it was just not working. Her skin was literally peeling off. The makeup would not stay. So that's when I asked her, is there something going on with your nose that I should know about? Let me also just say that at this point it was starting to swell and was noticeably more red than it was when she got there. That's when she told me that she had recently been out of the country for a mission trip and that she had picked up a flesh-eating bacteria, which had affected her nose. Then she told me not to worry because she had been on antibiotics for months, and that the irritation on her nose was just her skin healing. For once, I was horrified, not my client.
This is why you should always watch videos to the end. In 2003, a woman came home to her apartment to see that her door was unlocked. She went inside, nothing was missing, so she assumed she must have left it open. When it happened a few more times, but still nothing was missing in her apartment, she went out and got a camera, set it up in her apartment aimed at the front door. The next day, her door was unlocked, so she reviewed the footage. She watches in horror as late in the night, her front door opens and in walks this tall, creepy man who looks around and then walks towards her bedroom off camera. She immediately sprints out of her apartment and calls the police, who show up and tell her to go back in her apartment and just try to stay calm, and that they would put an officer right outside her door so she's safe. As she's sitting on the bed, totally traumatized, she realizes something. She only saw him enter her apartment on that video. She doesn't know if he actually left. As she's sitting there, she feels breathing on her ankles. She runs out, the cop comes in, and he finds the tall, creepy man under the bed holding a knife and a camera.
Okay, so story time. So basically one time in 5th grade, my dad took me to get breakfast from Dunkin' Donuts. We went there before school like always, and as we were there, this strange man outside was staring at me and like making faces. Super creepy. We didn't know him or anything, so we walked inside and I was kind of freaked out. I told my dad that I was creeped out by him and he told me that nothing bad was gonna happen. Or so he thought. So we got our foods and we ate it, everything was fine, chill. After we were done, we got up to leave. The man was gone by now, so I felt better But then on the way to my school, I saw him walking on the sidewalk. I figured he was going to his house or somewhere else. When we got to my school, no one was outside. It was kind of weird. We went to open the door because my dad was a part of the PTA, so he came in with me. The door for some reason was locked. My music teacher out of nowhere ran out and brought us inside quickly. She told us that our whole school was on code red. Scary. And that a man was in our school, so we went inside and I went and hid in the music room. For part 2.
I do substitute teaching from time to time, and last week I actually had the substitute for a 7th grade biology class. So the teacher contacted me a night before to tell me what the students are learning, what their homework was and all that, and what the game plan was. So I created a list of questions to test the students on if they understood what they're learning and if they did their homework. So the next day I walk into class, and as the day progresses, I tell the students, I said, I have a list of questions and I want you guys to answer them. The first question I asked the class was, what body part increases its size by 10 times when stimulated? Now, all of a sudden, this girl named Kate raises her hand and says, you are the worst substitute teacher. How can you be asking a group of 7th graders that question? You are disgusting. I'm going to go home and tell my parents and you're going to get fired. So I ignore Kate completely, but she keeps going on about how disgusting of a question this is and this and that. But all of a sudden, this little kid named Billy raises his hand. So I go, Billy, what part of the body increases 10 times when stimulated? And he goes, the pupil, sir. And I go, correct, Billy. So I decided to go back to Kate and I say, hey, Kate, I have 3 things to tell you. Number 1, you have a dirty mind. Number 2, you didn't do the homework on the eye. And number 3, you're going to be really disappointed in your life.
So I walk in on my cousin and my boyfriend doing the dirty on her couch. They quickly get up from the couch and get dressed. Of course, by that time, I'm in hysterics. I'm crying and yelling. My boyfriend instantly got on his knees and begged me for forgiveness. I went up to my cousin and I punched her right in the face. She wasn't expecting that. And I said, well, this is the guy that you've been dating, isn't it? She said yes, and that she was just trying to find the best way to tell me. And so she just thought the best way to tell me was to get me to walk in on her and him doing the dirty. I punched her again. My boyfriend came to her rescue though. Instantly went into hero mode, which made me even angrier, so I punched him too. I stormed out of her house and went back to my house. Well, I told my parents everything. And my dad went over to my uncle's house, my cousin's dad, and he told him everything. She was about to turn 19, so he took away her phone and her car. And I get a phone call from my ex, come back for part 3.
I was in class on Zoom. I wanted to go to sleep, honestly, because like when I'm tired, I go to sleep. I end up falling asleep and then class ends and everyone starts leaving the class. Except me, because I was like in a whole other universe at this point. I was dreaming, I was flying. At this point, me and the teacher are alone in the call. This is the best part. Then the teacher starts talking to me and he's like, Samantha, wake up. Samantha, please. Samantha, you have another class. He woke me up, but I was half awake, so I didn't really know what was going on. So I thought it was my brother waking me up, and I straight up yelled. I was like, shut up, you fat booger. And so then I realized, oh shit, I just called my teacher a fat booger. And now he scheduled a parent conference. I'm going on Monday, so I'm really excited.
If me and my sister ever put our elbows on the dinner table, my mom would take a fork and stab us in the arm. On Thanksgiving, I put my elbow on the table and she stabbed me with the fork, and she told me I wasn't allowed to have Thanksgiving dinner that night and I had to go to my room. Well, payback's a bitch. My mom got food poisoning from the turkey because she accidentally baked it with the plastic in it. But guess who didn't get food poisoning because they didn't eat the turkey? That's what you get, bitch!
This is how I met my soulmate without ever actually speaking to him. I work at a small family-owned ice cream shop. This really cute guy would come in every Friday around 5. I never actually took his order as I was the one making the cones and sundaes behind the counter. He would always tell my coworker taking the orders, I want whatever she's in the mood to make. Tell her to surprise me. And he would point me out. My coworker would deliver the message and he would look at me and smile. Each Friday when he came in, he would say, I'll have my regular order, whatever she wants to make. I made him something different every week. I try to be creative and give him something new and fun every time. I would try really hard not to look over at his booth, but I would always catch myself staring. He started leaving me little flirty messages on his receipt with a small cash tip at his table. I started to write back on his orders with caramel or chocolate sauce on his plate the best I could. However, it wasn't very legible or practical, so I started giving him flirty little sticky notes with his order. It made my Fridays really fun and something to look forward to. I was waiting for him to ask me for my number or to ask me out on a date so we could actually talk to each other. This went on for weeks until he finally made the cutest move ever.
Okay, story time. So I work at a jewelry store, and today a man came in looking for a gift for his wife for their 10th year anniversary. He ended up picking out a piece that said, my beautiful wife. And I said, anything else for you today? And he said, no, that's it for her, but I do want to make another purchase using a separate credit card. And could you possibly create a different account for me? And I said, sure, what are you looking for? And he said, do you have anything that says girlfriend? And I said, yes. And he said, perfect, I'll take it. And do you have anything that says happy 1 year anniversary to go with it? And I said, yes. And he said, perfect, I'll take it. So I boxed everything up all nice and I put them in their respected bags. He had me mark a K for Kristen on the bottom of his wife's bag and an L for Laura on the bottom of his girlfriend's bag. I put pretty bows on them. I handed it to him. I said, they're gonna love it. Have a nice day. And he said, thank you. And shit, I just remembered that his wife's name is Laura and his girlfriend's name is Kristen. I must have mixed up the bags. Oops.
This is why you should always lock your doors. A junior in high school was home alone working on a paper while his parents were out to dinner. All night he sits with his back to his door, sitting at his desk with his noise-canceling headphones on. Around 11 o'clock he takes his headphones off at the same time his parents are returning to the house, and he hears his mom from downstairs yell, "Hey Adrian, what happened?" Confused, he runs downstairs and sees right away what she's looking at, muddy footprints all over the rug. He tells her, "I didn't leave my desk." And then they realize someone must have broken in. They look at the footprints and there's none leaving the house. They're worried someone's still in the house, so they run into the garage, terrified, call the police. Police arrive and they don't find anyone in the house, but they do make a chilling discovery upstairs. The police bring them to the kid's bedroom door, which had been left open all night, and they point to the message written on it in Sharpie. This is the actual transcript of what was written on his door, which means for nearly 2 hours, someone stood in this kid's doorway watching him.
Part 2 of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Continuing on with the story, me and his 9 months were coming up. Also, he was adopted and his foster family absolutely adored me, so they were okay with me keeping it a secret from my grandma. They were the ones to help me tell her. So not only were our 9 months coming up, but his birthday was the next day. And he told me the only thing that he wanted for his birthday was for my part of the family to know that we were together. So one day I sat down at the table and I was like, hey, I think it's about time that I tell you. And then I told her everything and she asked for a picture. I showed her a picture and she was like, "Aw, he's cute. How old is he?" At first she was okay with everything and the age difference she was kind of iffy about, but then she accepted it. Then she asked his name. I told her his name, she said last name, gave her the last name, and she flipped out. She took my phone, didn't give me an explanation, and told me that if I ever spoke to him again, I would never be allowed out of the house. Finally, after she calmed down, she came to tell me that he was my brother. She asked if we had did anything, and I of course said no, but yes, we did. I'm running out of time, like for part 3.
Here's something fun. When you're in a long-term relationship, you'll often find yourself doing this thing with your partner where you'll say, when we have kids, I hope they have this trait of yours. And today my husband was like, I hope our kids will be as resilient and determined as you. When I was 11 years old, I got in a fight with my mum when she was picking me up from school, and I was being so rude that she wanted to teach me a lesson and scare me a little bit. So she said, you can find your own way home. Left me outside of my classroom, got in her car and drove off. Now, realistically, she was just doing the block and was going to come back and pick me up, hoping that I would be apologetic. But I wasn't. I was very stubborn and was like, I can find my own way home. And I decided to run home. I, in fact, sprinted from the school grounds and ran into a close family friend who offered to give me a lift, which I accepted, and I got home by my own means. Now, my mum did do the block and not only came back to me not being where she left me, but to one of my friends saying, yeah, I saw her get in the car with some weird guy. Imagining my mum's soul leaving her body that day is enough for me to not ever want kids, let alone kids like me.
Story time on how me and my stepdad were doing the nasty and my mom walked in on us. Okay, so boom. I was 18 at the time and my stepdad was 40. My stepdad been with my mom for like 2 years and it's only the 3 of us in the house. My stepdad always treated me well and gave me lots of money. Every time my mom would tell me no, here comes my stepdad to the rescue, turning that to a yes. Me and my stepdad were alone together a lot and it would be very flirty between us. As the days went by, we got flirtier and flirtier and farther. It started off as flirting, then we cuddled, and then cuddling turned into making out. I literally couldn't wait till my mom goes to work so I could spend time with him. My mom didn't suspect a thing. When my mom was home, I barely talked to my stepdad and I always stayed in my room. At this point, me and my stepdad didn't do the nasty yet, but this night I was gonna make sure it happened. Cause I seen my stepdad kiss my mom goodbye and I was pissed. Once she left, I turned it up, like for part 2.
The night I was planning to escape my abusive husband, I called an Uber to the house, but my husband showed up 2 minutes later. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent to me on Instagram. As soon as he walks in through the door, he was totally drunk. That's when he told me that he was hungry. I pretended that everything was normal and that I didn't have an Uber coming to save me. I went to the kitchen, I made him a sandwich as quickly as I could. I came back out, took one bite, and started falling asleep. Thank God. I hid in my backpack behind a curtain, slowly grabbed the backpack and my shoes, and that's when my cell phone notified me that the Uber was there. I was terrorized at this point because I was hoping the noise from the cell phone didn't wake him up. I turned around, but he was totally passed out. I ran barefoot to the Uber, got in, and told him to drive away. I went straight to a friend's house and turned off my phone. Next day, I went straight to a lawyer to file for divorce. I had text messages and pictures. I also went to the police and they said that I can't file a restraining order yet. My husband, of course, is already looking for me. He went to my mom's house, but she didn't let him in. But here's the problem. I already miss him. He sent me an email apologizing, swearing that it won't happen again. My gut's telling me not to go back. What do you guys think? My boyfriend is in his car making out with another girl. I caught them red-handed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend Rex quickly puts on his shirt, and the other girl puts on her shirt too. I try to open the door, but it's locked. And to my surprise, my boyfriend gets mad at me and asks me what I'm doing there. So of course I say to him, what are you doing here? That's when he finally gets out of the car, and he tells the other girl to stay in the car. I told him that he had promised to be monogamous. That's when he said that I was crazy and that he had never promised that, and that he had no intention to be serious with me. Then he said that I made that entire conversation up in my head. And then he told me to leave. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe what he had just said to me. The girl gets out of the car and she actually apologizes to me. And she told me that Rex had told her that he was single. Then Rex lunges at her, starts pulling her hair, and pushes her to the ground. Part 3 is up. One day there's a knock on the door, and it's the police. They told me they had a warrant to search my house. I called my mom and she came home right away. That's when she broke it to me and told me that she had installed cameras and that she caught someone in the camera stealing her underwear. I couldn't believe they hadn't figured out it was me. Then she shows me the camera recordings in front of the police, and you can totally tell it's me in the video stealing my mom's underwear and putting it in Ziploc bags. And then I would just send it off to these nasty dudes. That's when the cops told me they were gonna arrest me. My mom begged them not to and explained to them that it was probably just a phase I was going through. I basically stayed quiet the whole time because I was not about to incriminate myself. The cops leave and my mom turns to me and starts laughing. She confesses that she set up the whole thing because she knew the whole time it was me stealing her underwear. When I told her how much money I'd made, she said we should keep going with the business. So yeah, we're still in business and we're going strong. My mom's the
Okay, so story time. So let's start from the beginning. It was Monday, 8 in the morning. I just come from an amazing weekend, literally slept all day. By the way, I was in the 6th grade. Anyways, I was in my first period class and I met this kid. We talked for the whole period, talking about random things like memes and TikTok. Then the end of class came by, and out of nowhere, he started threatening me, saying, "Oh, if you don't become my girlfriend, I'm going to kill myself." Yeah. When he said that, I looked at him in shock. Thank God for the bell that rang. I got up and went to my next period class. I tried to avoid him as much as possible. I was lucky enough that I didn't have any other classes with him. So I finished that day and I got home and ate dinner, hanged out with my family, and did some homework. Then this is where it got weird. I went to bed and...
My best friend's boyfriend had broken up with her because of me. I didn't have the heart to tell her. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. A few days later, she started going out on Tinder dates again. I could see that she was feeling better, so I decided to confess to her everything. And she told me she could tell that he and I liked each other. Then she told me I should date him. Well, I didn't waste any time. I sent him a text message and asked him if he wanted to meet up for dinner. And when we did, he asked me to be his girlfriend. We dated for 6 months before he proposed. He even got my name tattooed on his neck. The only problem is that my mom thinks he might do the same thing to me. I don't even want to think about that because I truly believe that he loves me. But let's hope not. I've been planning the wedding and I asked my best friend to come. Of course she said yes. She's super happy for me. And she actually has a boyfriend now. Do you guys think my fiance will end up doing the same thing to me? I catch my husband doing dirty things in the pool with our neighbor. I'm recording all of this, by the way. He says he was going to tell me. So I show him all the evidence that I had been gathering, all the messages and the pictures. But little did he know I had already hired a lawyer. I'd known about the affair for about a month at this point. I had already been working on the divorce with the lawyer, documenting every single transgression my husband committed against me with our neighbor. And when I told my husband, he freaked. The neighbor, aka the woman my husband was with, she got out of the pool and went home. I printed out some flyers with all the pictures she had sent my husband and spread them around her yoga studio. I now get $10,000 from my husband monthly.
Am I the asshole for calling out my kid's future stepmom for treating me like a surrogate? I, 29 female, dated a guy, Joe, 30 male, for 3 months before he left me to go back to his ex, Kim. Right after we broke up, I found out I was pregnant. I let him know and he was ecstatic. Turns out his girlfriend had fertility issues and would likely never be able to get pregnant naturally, and he has always wanted to be a father. Joe was only allowed at the initial appointment because of COVID, and we found out I was having twins. According to Joe, when he told Kim, she had a mental breakdown about infertility and wanted to talk to me. I met them at their house, and Kim stated that she wanted to be involved in my pregnancy because she would eventually be the children's stepmother. She started telling me that I needed to do a home birth, that I needed to do formula feed so that they could have the babies half of the week, that she wanted one boy and one girl, and that she wanted the kid to call her mama.
Oh my God.
Storytime de la trágica experiencia que fue perder mi virginidad. Bueno, ese día en la mañana tenía planeado ir a la casa de mis abuelos. Sabiendo eso, yo llamé a mi amiga y la invité a una pijamada, ya que mis padres no me dejan tener pijamadas. Bueno, listo, todo se dio y mi amiga llegó a mi casa. Durante el día pues hablamos, hicimos cosas, nada especial. Pero cuando llegó la noche fue cuando empezó todo. Tengan en cuenta que tengo prohibido estar con esa amiga. Éramos así de locas cuando estamos juntas. La casa de mis abuelos es de 2 pisos y el cuarto donde yo me quedaba es en el 2º piso. Y el cuarto tiene una ventana con una escalera conectada. ¿Por qué? No sé, no me pregunten. Mi amiga y yo decidimos invitar a 2 chicos que iban a nuestra escuela. Pasó como 20 minutos y llegaron los chicos. Era uno para mí, uno para ella. Y ellos entraron al cuarto con esa escalera. Entonces mis abuelos no tenían ni idea. Cuando entraron pues nos pusimos a hablar normal. Y de repente mi amiga y su chico se durmieron. Y nos quedamos solamente el mío y yo. Nos empezamos a acercar y la ropa se quitó. Like para parte 2.
Storytime on when my mom kicked me out of the house and told me not to come back. So my mom was a security guard and she worked nightly shifts. And I'm not gonna lie, once I hit high school, I used to sneak boys in and out of the house. Now, at the time, I was dating a boy. He was 18 and I was 15. Let's just call him Vomit. So one night, Vomit came over. And of course, at the time, my mom was working. So you already know we was doing grown things. You already know we was doing grown stuff. So then I hear the front door open. She starts calling my name from the bottom of the stairs. And you already know I ran over there because I got nervous. So I hurry up, I put on all my clothes, and I tell him to hide in my closet. So I go downstairs and I ask my mom, I'm shocked that she's home so early. Like, why is she home so early? And she said that she had an early shift that night because her job closed early or something like that. So then I hear him walking upstairs and me and my mom look at each other. I ran up those stairs so quick. And then my mom said, you have 5 seconds to come downstairs right now before I beat your ass. Like for part 2.
This is part 2 of how my jealous stepsister cut all of my hair off when I was asleep. So after I woke up out of my sleep, I saw all my hair on my pillow and Jamie with scissors. I've never screamed so loud in my life. I tried to get back at Jamie, but she had scissors in her hand and threatened to cut me if I didn't back up. It was like she wanted to physically harm me. So I took the little karaoke machine and threw it at her, but it fell on her leg and she started crying. I was confused because the karaoke machine wasn't even that heavy. Jamie's dad walked into the room asking what happened, and Jamie said that I threw the karaoke machine at her. And my stepdad yelled at me asking, why would you do that? And then asked me what happened to my hair. I pointed at Jamie and said, Jamie cut all of my hair off. My stepdad looked at me like I was crazy and picked up Jamie and took her to the bathroom. I was mad because I knew Jamie was faking it. Then I went to my parents' room and told my mom that Jamie cut all of my hair off. If y'all want to know what happened after that, let me know down below in the comments.
Part 2 about why I beat up my best friend. So like I said, I learned how to do my hair and makeup, and she went on vacation for like a month straight. Well, when she came home, she threw another party, and she was like, don't worry, after I'm done getting ready, I'll do your makeup and do your hair. And I was like, no, it's fine, I got it. She literally looks at me and she goes, are you sure? You don't really know how to do that. Like, it'll probably look really bad. And I'm like, why the fuck would you say that? She goes, no, like, I don't mean it to be rude. It's just that, like, I want you to look good in front of the boys and stuff like that. Like, sis tried to talk me into getting a shower for a full, like, 20 minutes. So after that, the whole night, she's literally being a pick-me girl. She's making all these comments about me in front of the boys. And I just keep brushing them off until her next party. We got ready and I put on these expensive shoes that I had just bought. And she goes, wow, you just like really like to copy my style, don't you? So she starts making comments that whole night about how my family's poor and stuff like that. And she threw up all over my shoes. So I dumped the trash can that everybody had threw up in that night on her, punched her in the face. But like 2 months later, she came to my house and apologized.
My sister and I have always been mistaken as twins. I'm 19 and she's 16, but we have the same height, skin tone, and similar voice. She also has a habit of being a copycat, from the way I dress to hobbies, even piercings. I know it's cute if you look at it from the outside, but sometimes it gets annoying. Like, yeah, we are quite close too, but why does she always happen to pick up everything I pick up? One afternoon, I was tidying up some costumes in my college showroom and found a rather cute brown and pink wig. It looks like a mushroom. I put it on, think it looks rather funny, so I snapped a picture and posted it to my Instagram. I received a text from my sister asking if I really cut my hair. I didn't mention it was a wig. While I somewhat have a feeling that she might copy that too, I lied and replied yes. I came home that weekend and lo and behold, my sister emerged with the same silly brown and pink bob cut, except this one is on her permanent hair. She was surprised that I arrived with my hair still long, then realized that I lied to her. She was furious that she had to cut that silly hairstyle because she thought I had it. Our parents think that it's a really bad joke and wanted me to cut my hair too to make it up to her. So am I the asshole for telling my sister I cut my hair when I really didn't?
Storytime on how I got caught for not eating breakfast. My bus used to come at 8:50 and I would wake up at 8:30. By the time I came downstairs, it would be like 2 minutes until the bus arrived. So as a sneaky kid I was, I took the cereal that my mom put in the dish and put it back in the container. And I did the same exact thing every day because I'd always wake up late. Until one day, my mom decides to mix 2 different cereal types into a bowl. So me, thinking I'm the sneakiest kid ever, put it back into a cereal container with just one brand of cereal. And then I kept getting the same mixture and I put it back. And then one day I came from school. Go to part 2 to see what happens next.
Storytime. My boyfriend tried to kill me so he could have my life insurance money. So I decided to go on Tinder to look for some potential matches.
And lo and behold, a guy named Jared was there. He was adorable, he was charming, and we had multiple cell phone calls before deciding to meet. We met at Red Lobster and it was like fireworks. He was so romantic and looked like a 6-foot-something cowboy. He took me to a wildlife bird refuge after dinner and I instantly fell for him. We dated for months and everything was mostly good. However, he was just very pressuring for things. And I didn't want to take things too fast. I was 21 and he was 31. Eventually, this just gave me some bad vibes, so I decided to cut off the relationship. But a few months later, he called me saying that he couldn't forget me. He had been married before and his wife had passed away, so I felt very sympathetic towards him. He had a really nice job, making over $150K a year, and he said that all he wanted to do was take care of me and my child. So I moved in and things were good again. I would wake up in the morning, he would make me coffee, and I would help him with his kids. But I noticed that my weight was starting to go down. And that's when I realized he was putting something in my coffee. Follow me on Insta and stay tuned for part 2.
No, because I actually seriously don't get what the government expected to happen when they put us in a 4-week lockdown right before a holiday and then unlocked us conveniently right on it so we could all go shopping. And then they're like, oh, I don't really know why, guys, but there's actually a surge in cases. Yeah, because you locked us in our fucking houses and then you let us out again. What are you doing? Like, I just don't get it. They really only let us out so that they could boost the economy because they wanted more money. And everyone's turning against each other because the government are just fucking messing people about. I wouldn't be surprised if the next tier is tier 10. You're strapped to your bed and you're being pushed around Tesco's by members of parliament in full PPE. But of course, schools will be open.
Okay, so part 2. So I went and hid in the music room. Dad was in the PTA room, which was close by. Literally started crying because I was so scared and they weren't telling us anything because we were too young. I guess they didn't want to scare us. That didn't work. Once the code red was over, about 30 minutes later, we went to class. I went to go find my dad and make sure he was okay and see if he knew anything, and he didn't. When I got in my classroom, we were all talking about it, and my teacher said that the man just walked in and told them he was looking for one of his teachers from like 15 years back. Huh? They gave us a description of the man, and I realized it was the same man from Dunkin' Donuts. He just walked in my school. I was freaked out because I saw him at Dunkin' Donuts before school started, and I hoped I never saw him again. But a few weeks later, I saw him again multiple times at the same Dunkin' Donuts. He literally just stared at me all the time. So yeah, that's my little story.
My boyfriend's crazy ex is sitting on the couch and I'm terrified. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. She had just finished sending me a bunch of DMs on Instagram totally abusing me. But my boyfriend didn't know this. I walk into the apartment and they're both sitting on the couch. She turns around and asks him, is that her? My boyfriend looks at me with a serious face and says, yes, that's her. Then she shows me DMs on Instagram that I had supposedly sent to some guy, and that she passed herself off as this guy to see if I would fall. And the messages were so dirty and disgusting. I tell my boyfriend that's not me and that I would never do that to him. He just stares at me and doesn't say anything. That's when I try to show him all of the DMs that she had just sent me. But I noticed they were all gone. She actually unsent every single DM. Now I had no proof and it was just her word against mine. That's when I accused her of planting the cameras in our bedroom. She actually smiled at me and turned around and told my boyfriend she would never do that. Then she slapped me.
To anyone who gets a period, this video is for us. When I was in middle school, I really appreciated this teacher who would let the girls go to the bathroom whenever we wanted. And the guys would complain that they had to wait 20 minutes at least after lunch so that they could use the restroom. And the teacher would always remind them, you guys are boys and these are young ladies and they don't always have to just relieve themselves in the restroom. And I didn't even realize that that was just basic human decency for people who have periods until I got to high school. When I was a junior in high school, I was sitting in class and I felt like I was bleeding. And so I told my teacher that I had to use the restroom. And he told me I couldn't go because it was the first 15 minutes of class. And I told him, it's an emergency. I really have to use the restroom. And he said, you should have thought about that at lunch. And because I'm not going to sit here and bleed through my pants, I was like, I'm menstruating really loud in front of the whole class. And he was shocked and so uncomfortable. He started doing that thing where he tries to laugh like, in all my 20 years of teaching, no one has ever told me that. And I just sat there and wondered how many girls before me had to sit in their own blood.
When my boyfriend and I are doing the dirty on his bed, I notice there's a little lens pointing straight at us. He goes to grab it and we realize it's a little camera. The whole time we've been doing stuff on his bed, it's been recording us. That's when my boyfriend Dan said that it must have been his crazy ex. Let's call her Casey. He had told me that she was really crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. Dan starts looking throughout his whole apartment and he finds 2 more little cameras. One in the kitchen and one in the bathroom. As you can imagine, we didn't sleep that entire night. Of course, we went to the police and they opened an investigation, but they said they couldn't find anything. A week later, I get a DM from Casey, his ex-girlfriend. She starts abusing me through DM, calling me a bunch of names. She even said that I stole Dan from her, but I hadn't even met Dan when they broke up. Then she sends me a picture of my house, which means she knows where I live. I go straight to my boyfriend's apartment, and when I open the door, guess who's there? Casey is sitting on the couch with my boyfriend. It gets scarier. Part 3 is up.
Storytime Ex-Boyfriend Edition Part 2.
So the girl my boyfriend was cheating on me with was strategically placing all of her black, beautiful hair all over his apartment. I then proceeded to leave my beautiful pink hair right next to hers. Within a day, I started finding bobby pins and lady garments in places that I would definitely find them. Needless to say, my relationship with him was over. He apparently was so heartbroken and called me 3 times a day for 6 months straight. I finally picked up the phone and we decided to be friends since we had a 8-year friend relationship prior to this. I got really busy with work and didn't really talk to him much. 6 months later, he wants to catch up and have a drink. Against my better judgment, I go. He starts asking me about my dating life. And by the way, it's been a year since my breakup and I've been a wreck. I say absolutely not, we are not talking about dating life. He says to me, yes, Annie, we have to because I'm in a group relationship with the girl I was cheating on you with. It gets worse, like for part 3.
My mother-in-law tampered with my birth control, resulting in me getting pregnant 3 months postpartum. My husband, 22 male, and I, 20 female, welcomed our daughter into the world 18 weeks ago. She's a darling baby and really pretty easy as far as newborns go, except for one. She wasn't a son. My in-laws were obsessed with the idea of us having a son, to the point that they denied she was a girl up until the moment she was born. Why? Because the bloodline follows the father. If you don't have a son, our family name will die out. The day they came to visit in the hospital, my in-laws asked when we would be trying for another baby. We kind of just laughed it off, but my mother-in-law got more insistent, straight up telling us, y'all need to try for a boy. Over the next month or two, the conversation about us having another baby sort of tapers off into little comments every now and again. Around this time, mother-in-law started coming over daily.
Okay, so story time. So it was the summer of, I don't know, let's say 2014, because honestly, I do not remember. Anyways, a new movie had just came out. I wanted to go watch it, but no one in my family wanted to come. And me being the youngest, I get what I want. So I begged my parents and begged them till they made my brother take me. So my brother and I got ready, hid our snacks and, our little pockets, and I brought a little purse. Because, movie theater snacks are extremely expensive. For what? I had to get a water bottle for $4. That's just crazy. Anyways, back to the story. We got there, got our ticket, and headed to the theater. It was pitch black. We missed the previews because the movie already started. There was literally no one there. Or so we thought. So my brother, being him, decides why not scream in the middle of the movie. Sorry guys, like for part 2.
My boyfriend's crazy ex slaps me and lunges at me. Of course, I start attacking her right back. My boyfriend separates us finally and asks both of us to leave his apartment. I was so crushed that he didn't believe me. So far, she had spied on us in bed, hacked my Instagram to send DMs to herself to make it look like I was talking to another guy, and threatened me by telling me that she knew where I lived. Oh yeah, and she physically attacked me too. I left my boyfriend's apartment and a few days later he comes looking for me. I explained everything to him and he said he had no choice but to believe me. His ex was too crazy. Then he told me that she went back to his apartment that night and picked his lock. She got naked and crawled into his bed. He woke up, kicked her out, and went straight to get a restraining order. He scanned his apartment for more cameras and found 2 more. What should we do?
Storytime, agarren palomitas, pónganse cómodos. Hace unos meses yo salí con mi novio. Nos fuimos a comer en un lugar colombiano. Entonces llegamos, todo normal. Nos sentamos, comimos, estuvo todo re bien. Pero después de eso, al ladito quedaba un Walmart, que es una tienda de básicamente todo en Estados Unidos. Entonces decidimos entrar porque teníamos tiempo de sobra. Cuando entramos dimos unas vueltas y pues nos aburrimos. Y yo le dije que yo necesitaba usar el baño. Entonces fuimos al baño. Pero cuando llegamos, no sé por qué, pero de la nada me dieron ganas de hacer cosas con él. Entonces le dije, ¿y si te entras al baño de mujeres conmigo? Al principio me miró como si estaba loca, pero luego se ha decidido entrar conmigo. Cuando entramos nos encerramos en uno de los baños y pues ustedes ya saben, hicimos de lo nuestro. Cuando de repente entra una señora. Y no cualquier señora, la señora de la limpieza. Entonces había que pensar rápido. A él le tocó pararse encima del inodoro casi desnudo. No me da más tiempo, like para parte 2.
My boyfriend left me for his best friend, who's a guy. A few days passed by and I was super devastated. That's when my boyfriend comes and knocks on my door. Then he gave me the worst news of all. He told me he was gonna marry his best friend, Roger. He explained to me that they had been in love for a long time, but they never told each other anything. It was only until recently that they started hooking up. Looking back, it all makes sense. He and Roger would hang out all the time and I was never invited. Roger even got my boyfriend hired as a makeup artist at his job. They were constantly together. But at the same time, I had never seen my boyfriend so happy. He said he could finally be himself. This is when I realized that it was for the best. I stopped begging him to get back with me and I started dating other people. They even invited me to their wedding, which was beautiful. Now we have dinner a few times a month and I've got a new boyfriend. Life is crazy.
Storytime of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Yes, biological brother, same mom, same dad. So a little background information, my mom passed away when I was 2, my dad is currently in jail, and I live with my grandma. So at the time, I was 14, about to be 15, he was 17, about to be 18. So how this all started is one day I was at the baseball game with my friends and he happened to be there. I was fangirling over this boy. Like, I saw him and I was like, I'm going to marry him one day. I was feeling a little bold, so I went over and got his snap. And then I figured out that he had the same last name as me and I was like, dude, that is dope. My exact words were, now I don't have to change my last name when we get married. So we hung out the rest of the baseball game and I was starting to fall in love with this kid. Like his smile, his laugh, I talked about him to my friends the rest of the night. And me and him started snapping for a while. So we started to hang out a lot. We may have hooked up a couple times. But I had to keep this all secret from my grandma because she forbid I dated somebody. So fast forward a couple weeks, we start dating. Months and months and months go by. Our 9 months come and I finally tell my grandma. And this is where it gets bad. I'm running out of time, like for part 2.
I had just moved into my first apartment with my boyfriend. On move-in day, my boyfriend was working, so I started moving things alone. I noticed my neighbor, who is a man probably in his late 60s, was watching me the entire time, so I waved as I was going into my apartment. When I walked out of my apartment, he was standing outside my door and said, "I guess I should have helped you." That was the last encounter I had for about a week. My boyfriend had never seen this man, so I assumed he believed that I lived by myself. My next encounter, it was about 11 p.m. and I took my dog outside to go potty. I looked up and the same man was watching me from his blinds. I was extremely creeped out, so I looked away and tried to get my dog to hurry up. I looked at his blinds again and he was no longer there. About 30 seconds later, my dog started to freak out and lunge. So I looked and the man came outside. The first thing he said is, "I just wanted to let you know I walked into your apartment."
This is why you should never eat tasty cakes and why I can't ever look at a coffee cake the same. So a couple years ago, my dad went to my uncle's house to come visit, but he was super hungry. He asked my uncle if he had any snacks. My uncle, of course, said yes. Then my dad went to his kitchen and saw that he had tasty cake coffee cakes. Boy, he was excited because my dad loves sweets. He went to go sit down to watch the game with my uncle, but when he took a bite of the cake, he said it tasted really moist. He ate half of it, then noticed that some of the crumbs on the tasty cake disappeared. When he took a better look at the cake, he realized that the tasty cake crumbs were maggots.
The weirdest thing that ever happened to my family is my sister finding out she was dating our long-lost brother. You're probably asking, how did this happen? So when my sister was about 1, my mom was pregnant with another baby. She ended up birthing my brother, but me being 1 year old really didn't understand. Like, you really can't comprehend that you have a brother at that age. And fairly soon after this, my parents ended up getting a divorce. So my dad was originally from Germany and he decided to move back. Well, because you can't really do weekend visitations in Germany, my parents made the executive decision to split up the kids. My mom kept us and my dad got my brother. And we honestly didn't care. We didn't really know what was going on at that age. And after that, we didn't have any more contact. So fast forward 20 years later, my mom and my sister aren't really talking because of a whole separate situation. And she was going to our town's community college and met a boy. We can call him John. Well, John asked her out on a date and they ended up dating for 5 more years. Over the years, she learned stuff like his dad was from Germany, his dad passed away, and he didn't really have any contact with his mom. Follow my Insta for part 2.
I grew up in a very warm and loving environment, but from what I was told, I was lucky. My sister and I had 2 drug addict parents who never took care of us. When my mom was pregnant with me, she smoked and got drunk pretty often, and when I was born, my sister was the only one who took care of me. When I was 2 months old, they left us both in a mall and left, and we never saw them again. An old couple found us and contacted the police and eventually decided to adopt us. Today I'm 19 and my sister is 34. We're really close, but I still live with my adopted family and she lives about 20 minutes away. So a couple of months ago, a friend and I took a DNA test, and that's how I found out I have an aunt in the system. I immediately reached out to her and we agreed to meet in person, all without telling my sister a thing. We tried to figure things out, so I asked her if she has a brother or sister, and she told me that when she was 13, her older sister got pregnant while being drunk with her junkie boyfriend, and a month after giving birth, she ran away with the baby after some pretty intensive fights with their parents. They never found her, but stopped looking after a year and a half. When I saw the picture, I knew it was my sister 100%. My sister is my mom. We were never abandoned. She fabricated this entire thing to my adoptive family and
Okay, so story time. So it was Sunday morning. It was going pretty well, or so I thought. So anyways, my family and I weren't doing anything. We were just chilling at home. Then my mom told me to take out the dog. By the way, outside of my backyard is a screen and a pool. Anyways, I don't think much of it. I'm in my rainbow unicorn pants and my black striped shirt, because I just woke up. And I opened the door to let my dog out. She's sniffing around and I'm just off to the side waiting. I looked to the right of me and there was this cute guy, ooh. Anyways, he was just sitting there with his dog, just, enjoying life. I quickly try and hide because, I'm wearing unicorn pants and I don't want him to see me looking rough. So I hid behind the corner and just right when I'm about to head inside, my dog decides to crap on the side right where he was. Like for part 2.